David HaMelech says, Adonai malach geut lavesh. Hashem is the king, and therefore he wears arrogance. He wears pride. His clothing is pride. The Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, says there's a famous halakha that you're not allowed to wear king's clothes. And I have sometimes you find like Hasidic groups, they want to get married in the Rebbe's shirt or the Rebbe's raincoat. But if you really thought he was the king, you wouldn't wear his clothing. It would be really disrespectful to wear his clothing. It'd be like going to Rabbi Vadi's house, like, can I try in your robe? It was like, Leah, you're not chief rabbi. Only a Kadosh Baruch Hu is allowed to wear the cloak of arrogance. Nobody else. It would be considered a capital offense. Before I start, I'm not going to continue what we mentioned last week, which was Torah study versus working. And I'll tell you why. The same reason if I was right now addressing a Reform Rabbinical Convention, which I wouldn't have any problem doing. Yeah, but the topic I would choose would not be Rabbi Yosef Masas's accounts of women wearing tefillin. Because I don't need to lend credibility to opinions that I don't agree with. Rather, I'd like to find common ground that I do agree on and talk about it. When I read this other side of the coin of people not getting an education, people not working, you lend credibility to the other side. And the answer is there is no credibility to the other side. And I know that's not fair, and it doesn't sound right. And I don't have it here in front of me, but let me show you. Some of you are aware of a little encounter we got into about education and Torah study. I rarely do it's been a long time since I ever got into one of these quibbles on the internet. And my better judgment has told me to stay away. But it happens. It's incomprehensible to me that people would say we're only going to have a Torah education. We refuse to study secular studies, and this is the purest form of education that one could have. And the great rabbi this one, and the great rabbi that one, and the great rabbi the next one all said that's the way we must study. To this I share with you a story from Rav Kook. Rav Kook, who tried to have general studies in his yeshiva. Rav Kook was once with a certain Hasidic Rebbe. They were meeting, and it came time to pray mincha. And Rav Kook said, "Why don't you join me in the Beit Midrash?" There are some Hasidic Rebbes you might not know about, but they have a custom not to pray with the minyan.
Why?
The Hasidim pray in a room, and they have imagine this kitchen had a little mail slot in it that you could hear through, and they pray alone in that room. Why? For whatever reason. The Rebbe needs his privacy, the Rebbe is too holy to pray with you. I don't know what the reason is, that doesn't make a difference. According to halakha, did he pray with the minyan if he heard the minyan?
No.
No. In order to be counted as a minyan, you have to be seen by the minyan. Obviously in the same room, right? So if you're on a video camera, that doesn't count either. But it has to be in. I mean, if somebody's in the kitchen, but they're in the part of the kitchen where we can see them in the Beit Knesset, so that counts as them being a minyan. But if they're hiding over there by the refrigerator, they're not counted anymore as part of their minyan. And Rav Kook told us, "Right, we come. It's not. We don't have such a special room for you to pray in. Why don't you come pray with us in the Beit Midrash?" So, no, I'll pray in your office. And Rav Kook looked at him and said, "Listen, you also have an obligation. Before you listen to yourself, you have an obligation to listen to the Shulchan Aruch. And the Shulchan Aruch says you have to pray with the minyan." So he grabbed this Rebbe and pushed him into the Beit Midrash and made him pray with him. We've lost this attitude of you. I don't care who you are. I don't care how great you are. You have an obligation to listen to Hashem. You have an obligation to listen to our rabbis. Between you and the Talmud trumps you. It doesn't make a difference who you are. It doesn't make a difference that you can fly on a magic carpet across the world mumbling chapters from the Zohar. It doesn't make a difference.
That's what separates the Jew from the other religions. There's other religions, like when you reach a higher level, you're no longer bound by the law.
Very good. You are exempt from the law. Here, by us, it's the opposite. To the contrary, the higher you grow, the more you are bound, not even to things that are law, but even to things that are not law, but you have to be particular about because you're so great. And so when someone throws out, how could you say, don't you know there are thousands of rabbis who say X, Y, and Z? There's one great rabbi who lived who said, I don't have an answer for you about that. I don't know what went through this rabbi's thought process. All I can tell you is that he has to answer up to the Shulchan Aruch like everybody else does. He has to answer to the Gemara like everybody else does. He has to answer to the Kadosh Baruch Hu like everybody else does. If my rabbi were to tell me that I should eat pig, I'm being radical because it's not equal. Well, do I listen to my rabbi? No. Why not? My rabbi said so. If your rabbi is infallible, he's no longer a rabbi, but to you he's a god. Could your rabbi make a mistake? The answer to that question is no. You're not dealing with the same person. And you are no longer dealing with a person who is part of normative Judaism. What I mean by normative, those of us who are bound to the teachings of our rabbis.
Then you have the issue of the tzaddikim, the way people revere tzaddikim.
I had this argument recently with somebody. This whole tzaddikim concept is not a Jewish concept. Yeah. It is not. There are tzaddikim, righteous people, but this whole idea of there's a tzaddik and the tzaddik is the connection between us and Hashem. The tzaddik elevates us, the tzaddik, which is very normal to hear in Judaism today. This is exactly the reason why we rejected the whole concept of Jesus in the first place. We don't believe in this stuff. They said, we do. What do you mean? Do you think they made it up? I don't know if they made it up. But find me a place in the Talmud, a place in the Rambam, in the Tanakh, find me, where this idea of a tzaddik is espoused. It doesn't, you don't find it. You don't find it. In fact, what you find throughout the Tanakh are extremely righteous individuals who made terrible mistakes.
It's so interesting with Moshe Rabbeinu that sometimes he doesn't know how to, like in the situation with Pinchas, he didn't know what to do, or he had to ask
advice
on what to do in a situation.
And nobody would dare say that Moshe Rabbeinu is a bad leader because he didn't know, because he had to ask Hashem. Very good. But throughout the Tanakh, in fact, the last two parashiot, Korach, remember Korach was not the devil incarnate. Korach was the leading rabbi of his generation. Korach could have been the chief rabbi of the Jewish people. He served in such a capacity. Any rabbi that you know of today, Korach was greater than him. But Korach messed up big time. And the Torah is not afraid to call out Korach. Hashem is not afraid to swallow him up into the earth. Because you are righteous and you can make mistakes too. We talk about having Torah study, having a secular education. I've told you before, the Rambam does not believe in a secular education. There is no such thing. History, math, science, geography. Included in science are the sciences, medicine, and so on and so forth, whatever would fall into this category. The Rambam considers those obligatory, like Torah study. How could you be a stupid Jew? It says in Torah, Mi am chacham v'navon agoy gadol hazeh. Who is great and wise like this nation? We think that this is spoken to the Goyim. The Goyim are saying this. You think the Goyim, they come and test us on what happens if milk falls on a pot of meat and we're so brilliant because we know the Shach and the Taz. That's not how they're going to judge our intelligence. If there's a way for Goyim to judge our intelligence, it has to be through something they're familiar with. Our Chachamim were in their generations. It's not divine science. We're world-class scientists and knew the stars and the way the world worked to their understanding. Who exempted? To Sanhedrin, a person has to know languages and to know different arts and to know Avodah Zarah, to be familiar with cultures of the world. So who created this idea that you could be a Torah scholar and just know Torah? You want to tell me there are things that are studied in the field of secular education that you might think that you don't need to teach to religious boys and girls? I would agree with you. I could agree on that. But between that and not giving somebody what's called a secular education at all, it's inconceivable. If somebody has to prove this, it's already we've come a long way. If I can, because I want to counteract what Rabbi David Yosef said last week. My father sent me a list of different rabbis in which speak about Parnassah, the importance of having a Parnassah, being able to work, Maran in the Shulchan Aruch discusses the forbidden, permitted things to speak about on Shabbat. Most things involving business are prohibited to be spoken about on Shabbat. In Morocco, the custom was to hand out your receipts for your donations to the synagogue on Shabbat services. In the morning, the Gabbai would walk around and hand you your envelope with your receipt. Because that's considered a mitzvah. It's not business, it's what you donated to the synagogue. I have not seen anybody do that today, but it was a thing.
I did that because I contacted him privately and said, you put up some English sources, please. Came up with a whole laundry list of stuff.
This is my father. He copied it from someone. The Rif and the Rosh, Rishonim. One Sephardic, one Ashkenazi. One must teach a trade to his son. The Ridah says if one does not do so, it is as if he teaches him robbery. The Rambam in Hilchot Deot says one must be very careful not to pain orphans. The exception to this rule, if one afflicted them in order to teach them a trade, it is permitted. It is part of their education to teach them a livelihood. It's allowed because that mitzvah overrides the mitzvah of not hurt. Sometimes the teacher has to give discipline. The Rambam says in Shabbat, one may arrange to hire someone to teach a trade to his son. This is a mitzvah. Your desires, when it says your desires are forbidden, that's what you're not allowed. Your own business you can't talk about on Shabbat. But finding someone a profession, that you're allowed to talk about because that's Hashem's desires. The Rambam in the Pirush of Mishnayot, his commentary on the Mishnah, in the end of Kiddushin says, one is obligated to teach his son a clean trade. Therefore, he may not teach him to teach children.
That was interesting. So Rabbi Yonatan said, don't be the wrong way.
These last few days I felt very strongly with a pillar that says that it's not worth being a rabbi. I'm not a guy, I don't have any regrets. But you have to deal with things that you never had to deal with in the Beit HaMikdash. You want to sit and study Torah, and then 1,001 things you have to deal with. That's why we're here. If it was just about me, then I would be sitting in Beit HaMikdash studying Torah, but it's not just about me. But sometimes it gets much, it gets like too much, it gets, how much of you can I deal with? But you do it anyways. The rabbis tell us you should joyfully serve the community. So you joyfully do so. But don't think it's always easy. I'm not jealous of rabbis of huge communities with politics and committees and all kinds of things they have to navigate and crises and Baruch Hashem, here you just gotta study Torah, learn Torah, more Torah, write, think, breathe, discuss, but it's not always like that. And so our rabbis never saw that trait of teaching others Torah to always be so noble. Sometimes you lose out on it. Would be better for you to make your own money than just learn Torah on your own. You don't have to be reliant on other people, but it's okay. The Shulchan Aruch again says on Shabbat one may discuss HaShamayim's desires, and that means to arrange to hire someone to teach a trade to his son. You're even allowed to discuss if you want to hire me on Shabbat. Just not to discuss the actual wages or to hire him actually on Shabbat. Magen Avraham, Ashkenazi comment, the Shulchan Aruch says this is a mitzvah. Because if a person doesn't have a trade, they're going to steal. So you're helping a person avoid stealing.
Interesting.
The Beit Yosef, Maran, writes that the Maharam, the Ramban, the Ran, and the Magid Mishneh, they're the ones who forbid mentioning the wages. Like, you can't work out on Shabbat how much you're going to make. The Mordechai, though, who's an Ashkenazi Rishon, he says, no, it's okay also. And that's also included in the mitzvah. You can even discuss how much money you're going to make in your new job on Shabbat. The Ramah says that if one learns Torah without working, this causes sin and then he will steal. That's already a quote from the Gemara. And Zev said thank you. But this is just
responses on this privately.
This is just a small list of things that our rabbi said openly. The importance of having a trade, of having a profession, of working. It doesn't make a difference which great rabbi in the world you follow. Who has the right to challenge Chazal? Tell me, who wants to stand up that I know more than the Rambam? But you know why I don't say that? Because according to the Rambam's Ben Midrash, you can't make such a claim. You can't say, you can't argue with the Rambam because he's the Rambam. Rabbi Avraham writes that it's inconceivable for a person to demand that you follow an opinion just out of respect to the person who wrote it, without questioning it logically. So this is a violation of Torah principles and of logical principles. Every opinion has to be weighed and calculated. So then why do I say, who are you to argue? Because our Chazal had, what lifestyle are you offering instead? Chazal offered you a lifestyle where you could be a holy person, a learned person, a righteous person, who fends for himself, who earns for himself, who takes care of his family, who has an education. And now you're trying to push an agenda of, no, you can't learn for yourself, you can't be educated in matters aside from Torah. How much Torah, how much other worldly knowledge you need to learn Torah? How many tractates of the Talmud you need to know math for? You need to understand anatomy for, not just human anatomy, animal anatomy. You have to understand certain sciences. History, it doesn't make sense to learn Torah if you don't understand history. There are things that happen in the Tanakh and the Gemara that are directly influenced by the world that we lived in around it. You're offering now people, forget everything else, forget working, forget study, just learn Torah. Hashem will provide. On where did Hashem promise you it's going to work that way? It's nice to have poor Jews that you can control, maybe. It's easier to keep people when they're dependent on you and your tzedakah fund and your yeshiva handout and your stipend from your donor from New York and New Jersey and California and wherever else. It's easier for me to control you. I don't want to say that everyone's malicious, but definitely a Judaism that's sustainable is very important. A Judaism that's sustainable is not going to work out this way. And like I told you last week, I feel very strongly that if the people who are in yeshiva post a certain age, you're in high school, you're in college, you're doing college studies while going to yeshiva, that's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who they finished all of that and they decide they want to go full-time into yeshiva. They're taking away money, literally money, from their colleagues who actually stand a chance at serving the Jewish community in the field of rabbinics by oversaturating a market. I'm calculating what I'm allowed to say. Okay. It can be that this ideology is espoused, and if it doesn't match with the Torah, it doesn't match with the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch would not have a chapter about doing business honestly if you were not allowed to do business. He wouldn't talk to you about the importance of finding your child a job if you were not supposed to find your child a job. And this is common sense. The Torah doesn't. If you told any other nation in the world, sorry, we don't believe in working. What do you mean you don't believe in working? So who's going to feed you? You're going to feed me. Me? Yeah, you should go to work, pay your taxes so I can eat. That's normal for somebody?
That's what I learned many years ago, is that the Jews are supposed to be learning and studying, and the other nations, grow the food, prepare the food to bring it to your table so you can eat, so you can study. There's a hierarchy.
All those farming tribes in the land of Israel will be very devastated to hear that you just took away their business and gave it to the Canaanites. I know you gave it to. Yeah, you're right. I've heard it too, but it's where.
It's a tradition that we had to leave the corners of our fields for the poor.
It's definitely an agrarian tradition.
But they are Jewish farmers. Well, if you're a Jewish farmer, you're not going to be spending 24 hours a day studying. This is one big point in Judaism. No? So,
correct.
Some of the great rabbis had vineyards.
Yeah.
And I read to you a list of all the rabbis and their trades, right. Blacksmiths and this one and that one and day laborers and movers and all kinds of trades. What?
Woodcutters.
Woodcutters, I mentioned, coal working, all kinds of things we talked about. And this is where I'm torn. I'm torn because what do you do with an Am Yisrael that doesn't follow Judaism? What do you do? Who do you argue with? Why do you argue? I don't care. What do I care if you want to be poor? Why do I care? Tell me why I care.
Because it affects everybody in the long run.
We're all in the same boat together. You're making a decision, but those are my brothers and sisters you're making poor. It's hard enough when those of us have a trade and we can't make our ends meet. We have jobs and we can't pay our bills. You're telling me you want to create a whole generation of Jews that they can't even attempt on their own to pay their bills? That's what you want to create? For what? For the sake of lifting the crown of Torah higher? Where? How's the person who can't pay their electric bill going to study Torah? They can sleep at night? There's a rabbi here in San Diego that I spoke to recently. I saw him, he could barely walk. He could barely walk. I took him aside, I got something to drink. What's going on with you? He's many years my senior. Don't think he's like a friend of me. He told me he hasn't slept in 4 days. He hasn't slept in 4 days. Because his organization has bills to pay. He doesn't know where it's going to come from. He cannot fall asleep at night. He went to the doctor. The doctor gave him sleeping pills. Like, that's going to help him. He's walking around from the morning until the night, and from the night laying in his bed just awake. That's what we wanted to create.
He's that stressed out.
I really couldn't walk. I thought something was wrong with him. That's the only reason I went over to him. If not, I would have just kept walking and had him in l'chaim and walked away. You want to create a whole world of this? In which world is he able to sit down and study Torah? Now look, he freed his whole life up to do what? To worry. It's not a promise that when you have a profession you're going to be a millionaire who's not going to... At least you know that with your own two hands, if you tried hard, if you went somewhere, you would be able to make ends meet. So this entire 2 pages of Rabbi Yonatan and convincing us that this lifestyle is correct, it's very challenging.